The thing with bamboo is that no pole is the same as the other. It's not a standardized material in the same way that we're used to. And what makes Indonesia so special is that, and specifically Bali, is that they have a lot of local craftsmen who are very talented.
Welcome to Grounded, the Sustainable Business and Careers podcast, where we explore how professionals, especially those early in their careers, can make a positive impact on the planet through their work. I'm Michael Jordan, Professor of Management and Sustainable Business at the University of Oregon's Lundquist College of Business. Each episode, we explore how purpose and practicality meet in business, bringing ideas you can use to build a meaningful, sustainable career. Let's get started.
So it's interesting to see that when you travel the world, like what different cultures do in their day-to-day that are quote unquote sustainable, but maybe they don't think about it that way because that's just like how they grew up with their connection to nature and Mother Earth.
My grounded guest today is Isabella Griend. Isabella is a sustainability consultant and construction materials specialist at Brightworks Sustainability. She focuses on whole building lifecycle assessments and helps clients make informed decisions about what materials serve the need for construction while also minimizing their carbon footprint. Isabella's formal education is in architecture, and although her primary client work now is in the US, her studies, research, and prior jobs have taken her to the Netherlands, India, Indonesia, and beyond. In our conversation, we talk about bamboo versus steel and concrete and the value of global experience. Isabella, I'm so excited to talk to you today about sustainability and your work and your background. So just thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you, Michael, for having me on. I'm really excited to chat.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of things that we want to talk about today, and maybe just to kind of get ourselves in the ballpark a little bit. I would love to hear about your work at Brightworks and sustainability, and what your role is like a little bit. And I'm sure I'll have questions about that, but maybe just give us a little tour of your perspective on your corner of the world of sustainability work.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I work at Brightworks Sustainability. We're a consulting firm, and I work specifically on our materials practice team, where I focus on um, embodied carbon analysis. And so, my role as a material specialist is to help our clients achieve their sustainability goals through analyzing the materials that they're using on their building projects and portfolios and help them find ways in which to decarbonize their built environment scopes. So I kind of like to think of myself as a investigator and just I look at a building and I'm dissecting it, kind of breaking apart all of the materials that go into constructing that building and understand those carbon impacts associated with every material that goes into constructing that. And so by quantifying those impacts, we're able to kind of look at hotspots and speak with our clients and come up with ways in which we can reduce those carbon impacts through different material choices or looking at different products. So, yeah, that's kind of what I do at a high
Okay.
level. That can look like different types of things for different clients.
And how do you trace that work to kind of the big picture of impact on the planet or impact for your clientele and what they're trying to achieve? Like, what's the big picture for why a client would bring you in to do that work?
Yeah, so many of our clients are looking to reduce their scope 3 emissions, and a big chunk of their total emissions comes from scope 3. So many of our clients are building a lot of various buildings right now, especially with this AI boom. We have many clients building a lot of data centers at um, just an incredible pace. So they're procuring a lot of materials, and those materials have carbon impacts associated with them. So this is a really great opportunity to reduce their impacts through their material choices. Um, so yeah, d data centers is something that we work on quite a bit. And yeah, I guess in terms of the global emissions, when we look at all of the different industries across all the different sectors, the built environment makes up a huge portion of our global emissions. So it's a really powerful opportunity to reduce those emissions through
Hmm.
our design choices and our material choices.
That's that's awesome. So it seems like you must have to work really early on in the process of building when clients are looking to design a new building to be able to, because it must not be just when we're ready to start construction, what materials should we use? It must impact some of the fundamentals of the design of the building.
Yeah, for sure. It helps to get in on a project as early as possible so that you can have those early conceptual conversations, I guess, along if we're looking at alternative building systems like mass timber, we obviously want to have those conversations as early as we can to ensure that it's feasible. It varies. It varies by client. Sometimes we come in quite a bit later in the design process, and it's it's harder to get a client on board with making complete material swaps. But there are still opportunities to, um, look at different concrete mixes or specify steel from a low carbon manufacturer. So it really kind of varies the different types of strategies and the impact that we can have based on when we're able to like plug into a project. So, yeah, early on is better because
Mhm.
then we can really start to think about completely different design strategies, whether it's like looking at a totally different structural system or optimizing a design to reduce the amount of material that you're using on a project. Those conversations have to kind of happen early on in the process, whereas if we come in a bit later, we're talking about, okay, let's procure from a better um,
Yeah,
steel manufacturer, or let's like look at swapping this ceiling tile, for instance.
I see. Okay. So the choices there's still choices, but they get a little more narrow the later in the design process you get to. Okay. I feel like I keep hearing about mass timber. Is that the hottest material out in the market right now for what people are trying to figure out how to build with?
Yeah, well, there are obviously like um, a lot of benefits to working with mass timber, and I th our our buildings are mainly dominated by like using materials like concrete and steel. Obviously, we need those types of materials, but um, I guess the appeal with mass timber is that it's a natural material. It's a plant that is growing and sequestering carbon. And so by using that in a building, we're storing and locking up that carbon that that tree has sequestered into our buildings. So there's a um, it's a powerful tool when we think about our buildings as opportunities to lock carbon rather than um, uh, buildings that typically are emitting a lot of carbon into the atmosphere because of their intensive processes and whatnot.
That makes
Um,
sense. Can I just, sorry to interrupt you, just a
yep.
quick kind of a question about that, because it really just occurred to me that that's a completely different kind of philosophical or kind of the beauty of mass timber is that now you have a material. Would it be fair for me to say that that makes that part of your construction have a negative carbon footprint as opposed to if you're putting steel in its place, then that same exact process has a positive carbon footprint because of the emissions that come with the steel?
Yeah.
Huh.
Um, yeah, I think you said it very in a very clear and simple way. It does get complicated when so we separate out those two different, I guess, types of carbon. So like carbon emitted and then carbon sequestered or biogenic carbon. And so um, we want to make sure that our wood is sustainably harvested and um, you know, so that we can ensure to like take credit for that biogenic carbon. But so it does get a little bit complicated and nuanced, but I think you said it pretty clearly and without getting too into the weeds.
But
But
it sounds like it's not just a matter of using wood or not using wood, but you have to kind of do the investigation to
yeah,
the source of it. It matters how the wood was grown and where and all the rest of it.
yeah, for
Hmm.
sure.
Any, do you feel like that's the biggest opportunity for new building construction is where it fits using mass timber, or are there other, do you have any other favorite strategies for reducing embodied carbon in buildings? Other materials that you feel like are maybe less famous?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I guess on this thread, I'm really passionate about like this umbrella of materials, what we call bio-based materials, so materials that derive from nature. So including mass timber, but also looking at I guess rapidly renewable materials. So um, wood is a great lever in terms of it's a building material that we've used for decades and people are familiar with using wood, but then there's also this umbrella of rapidly renewable materials that are, I guess, maybe not as well known in mainstream architecture, but really provide a great lever for reducing our embodied carbon footprint because of their ability to sequester carbon so rapidly. So I before Brightworks, I worked in bamboo construction, so I'm a huge advocate for bamboo as being another kind of like cousin to mass timber to help decarbonize our built environment. It grows um, it grows to full maturity in 5 years versus a lot of timber products or different types of trees in order to be harvested to use in buildings, it could take up to 10 to 60 years. So,
Yeah, I would think that would be the downside of wanting to use more timber is it takes a long time to grow it. I mean, that's sort of the why it's effective as well. But I
mhm.
about bamboo, which sounds amazing, because I've worked with a little bamboo before for fencing and stuff like that, but
Oh.
nothing major. But I'm having trouble picturing how bamboo works in a non, like I can see it as a decorative. So this is just my lack of education on how does bamboo work structurally for a building? What does it take the
Yeah.
place of?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's uh because it's not as well known as a building material, I think when I talk about bamboo, people like instantly gravitate towards like, yeah, fencing or maybe kind of poles that help, you know, keep up their garden or whatnot. But I highly recommend people to just search Green School Bali. That's where I
Okay.
worked when I was in Indonesia, and their structures are just huge and really impressive use of very large, round bamboo poles that are grown a species of bamboo that's grown in Indonesia. And so their structures are just like kind of mind-blowing. And
Okay.
when you see photos of what they're doing in Indonesia, also a lot of really cool projects in like Mexico and South America. You can really start to understand the potential of bamboo as a building, a structural material too. Like
Okay.
not just kind of aesthetically, I'm talking about holding up,
Hmm.
a whole system. So that's really exciting. Then there's also, so that's kind of when you think about bamboo and it's a pole form, but there's also this potential to use bamboo in a more, I guess, like modern contemporary form where you're similar to mass timber, you're chopping up the pole and laminating it into a beam. So there is some great potential to use bamboo in a similar fashion to wood and make standardized building components that are structural. There is a engineer in China who actually made a multi-story engineered bamboo um, apartment complex. So
Oh.
there are projects out there that really kind of highlight the potential of this material. That's really exciting. It's just um, you don't see it
Hmm.
often as you do mass timber, I guess.
There's something about there's something about that type of natural material that makes me think of the location, the role of location, right? Because if you live someplace where there's tons of bamboo growing around you, then you can see why, yeah, well, let's use that for our buildings. And if there's some place where you have giant, giant pine trees, then you might see, yeah, let's use that for our buildings. And I love that kind of organic connection of using the local, bringing that local material into what you're constructing. Because I'm guessing that from your perspective, especially since you've one of your areas of focus is embodied carbon, you probably wouldn't recommend let's ship a bunch of bamboo from Indonesia to Portland to make the airport interior, right? Let's use
Mhm.
local materials. Am I right in assuming that localness is a big consideration for materials for you?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that's what I discovered as well during my time in Indonesia is that the structures utilizing bamboo in its natural like full pole form and the thing with bamboo is that it's no pole is the same as the other. It's not a standardized material in the same way that we're used to. And what makes Indonesia so special is that, and specifically Bali, is that they have a lot of local craftsmen who are very talented and um, are very good at wood carving and just very skilled craftsmanship. Um, and so bamboo kind of works in that in in Bali because there's that local craftsmanship. Also, using bamboo in its full pole form is challenging to, make sure that the building is enclosed in um I guess the architecture just lends itself to being more open and kind of free
Oh.
flowing because
Hmm.
um there are challenges with working with a material that's not every pole is like the other and it's a bit more organic flowing. And so I recognize that that type of architecture won't work in um, other parts of the world, right? Like
Mhm.
you're not going to see a structure like that in um, California or New York, right?
Yeah.
That kind of lends itself to maybe a more tropical area that can have more open spaces. Um, So that's why I was interested in, how can you manipulate the material to make something like that accommodates a more modern architecture.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, localization and seeing what makes sense for your area is a really important piece of the sustainability story. And when we talk about embodied carbon and the emissions associated with also transportation of that material to site. And so, yeah, I think depends where you are for sure.
Yeah. Is this the kind of thing that you studied? Was this the dominant part of your curriculum in architecture as a student at university?
Yeah, it was it was definitely something that I guess inspired me when I went to do my master's in architecture at the University of Delft in the Netherlands. I had this thesis project that focused on this area in the Indian Himalayas.
I
And
see. Oh, that's right. Okay. I'm caught
I
up now.
was, yeah, I was working with a group of students, my classmates, and we were, I guess like the premise at a high level was to come up with an alternative way of building in this
Hmm.
area that was experiencing, kind of was rapidly developing because it's a popular place for tourism, and many people typically build their own homes or structures just using concrete and steel. And knowing that concrete and steel are high embodied materials,
Hmm.
we were challenging ourselves to come up with an alternative way of building. And so when we traveled there and, got to see the area and what was available, we saw so much bamboo grown
Oh.
throughout the region, also a lot of hemp
Hmm.
just growing wild. So we thought about um, we thought about what we could use that's local to build with and kind of start a new building industry using local materials like hemp and
Okay.
bamboo. So that's where my
Okay.
fascination for natural materials and specifically bamboo like was born.
I
Uh,
think people listening to this might kind of crack up though, because you're playing into the bullseye stereotypes of sustainability about hemp and bamboo and but
yeah,
but I appreciate your explaining it from the it's a real practical use with real value perspective. So that makes a big difference.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The speaking of school, so as a professor, I speak to a lot of students. I work with undergrads in the business school about and talk about sustainability and business. And I'm wondering, just while you're making me think of this, is there anything in particular that you feel like you wish you would have studied in school as an undergrad that might have made you even more amazing at doing this work, or skills that you think students should hone in on that will help them as they go out to find jobs either related to business or sustainability? What's your favorite like thing to recommend that undergrads figure out how to do that's going to help them with their early careers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think like my I definitely didn't have a linear path with how I graduating and obviously like moving to Indonesia and then coming back to the US and working as a sustainability consultant. But I guess my biggest advice would be to um, just follow your curiosity. That's what I did, and I think there's a lot of value in having unique experiences that I think will become more and more valuable as um, I don't know, with this whole AI boom and stuff like
Mhm.
that, just like going and getting alternative experiences and really like getting that hands-on experience. That's what I sought
Mhm.
out after graduating, and I think there's a lot of value to that. And I think people hiring also see value in that uniqueness and having all different experiences, a global lens, maybe taking time to study abroad or go live somewhere new. I think there's a lot of value in that. So I guess that's like more of the soft skills that I would recommend is just yeah, being curious and open-minded to different
Mhm.
experiences. In terms of like the technical skills, I think I think research is really important and just being able to think at a systems level and see the interconnectedness between different things. Um, so I really valued that I guess like learning that I got through architecture school is my my studies really honed in on research before even getting into the
Hmm.
design piece of architecture. And I think that was such a valuable way in which to understand all of the different impacts and things that come into play when we think about, I guess for me specifically, the built environment and sustainability and like the interconnectedness of that all. So um, I, yeah, I guess I would um, just hone in on that systems thinking skills and being able to kind of research and understand how things like come into play because sustainability is definitely not you know, a matter of ticking things off a list or um it's not nothing happens in silos. And so just understanding that interconnectedness with all these different things that come into play.
Hmm. That's great. And I think we emphasize that in many different parts of a university education, but it's good to, I think it'll be good for people to hear the voice of experience of how what we're saying in the classroom does pull forward with practical implications. So I appreciate that. Um, I teach in the business school. Do you feel like there's any particular role should if you're in the business school, should you just switch immediately to architecture if you want to get into sustainability, or is there a role for us business students?
No, I think there's so much I sometimes think that or wish that I took more business courses when I was in at my university. I think there's so much value in being able to understand um, how a business works, and I wish I had more of that experience. My husband has a business background, so we're always kind of, chatting through those things. But I think it's so valuable to have that experience and kind of understand um, how, yeah, how a business operates. I think it's an important piece of understanding how sustainability can plug into different types of businesses. So yeah, I'd say keep at it. I think
Yeah,
it's a great background to have.
there's a role. I guess it's a
Totally.
team approach now. We got to be systems oriented. We got to have a team approach to cover all the aspects of the challenge.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, well, as somebody who has that global perspective and has been to places far and wide as part of your education and your work experience, I'm wondering, do you have thoughts on sort of how sustainability is different, or how the values of sustainability or the approach or the needs for the planet vary from place to place? Is there anything that you would say you should look for this if you go to this place? Or I'm just wondering about what you're seeing for how the conversations about sustainability might be different in different parts of the world, or the priorities.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I think, yeah, having traveled to so many different places, I recognize that um, all, many different places are in different parts of their like sustainability journey. I always f felt like I think most people know this, but the US tends to be typically like behind places like Europe that have been, and I
Mm.
saw that
Hmm.
when I was in my undergraduate degree, sustainability was like a add-on to our architecture course, whereas when I was in the Netherlands, it was right up front and like the highest priority to inform our architecture. It
Oh,
was
interesting.
it wasn't just something that got tacked on to the end. And I hope that's changed now in the architecture courses. But um, I do still think that depending on where you are in the world, sustainability, people are at different like phases of their sustainability journey. I think what was interesting was that when I did travel to Bali, um, sustainability is just inherent in their way of life. They have this philosophy called Tri Hita Karana, which is essentially finding the balance between your relationship to God, your relationship to nature, and your relationship to people.
Hmm.
And I think the way in which they go about their connection to nature and Mother Earth is just so beautiful and like inherent in their culture. And I don't know, I think sometimes we forget about that in the US or our day to day. Um, and so it's interesting to be in this world of sustainability and to talk about sustainability in this like kind of corporate manner when there are also other cultures around the world that it's just like so inherent in how they live their life and how they show up. And um, so it's interesting to see that when you travel the world, like what different cultures do in their day to day that are quote unquote sustainable, but maybe they don't think about it that way because that's just like how they grew up with their connection to nature and Mother Earth. So it's beautiful to travel and see the to have those experiences and see how people think about sustainability from their own lens.
Yeah. I love what you said about, I guess it makes me think it all comes down to what do you put at the center, right? Do you put your business or your consumption at the center and then try to bolt on sustainability to that downstream a little bit? Or do you put that balance and with including nature at the center and build
Mhm.
out from there? It's sort of interesting.
Yeah, it is. For sure. Yeah, it is an interesting thing to think about.
Mhm.
Mm.
Well, I have appreciated so much talking to you about all this, Isabella. I feel like I could talk to you all day long about sustainability and more reasons to go to Bali and all the rest of it. But thank you so much for being my guest today on our podcast.
Thank you too, Michael. It's so fun to chat and talk about different sustainability things and share my experiences. I really hope it resonates with some people.